third generation Mercedes SLK is an everyday usable sports roadster that, like its arch rival, BMW's Z4, has a neat folding metal roof. Slick detailing, some incredible technology, low running costs and distinctive styling are all part of its appeal. Time to re-evaluate the Mercedes SLK. Let's recap. K in Mercedes model language effectively means light. Essentially, they say, a smaller, more compact but equally desirable version of the same thing. And sure enough, the SLK concept has always been based around delivering a more accessible, more affordable version of the brand's SL luxury convertible to the wider sports car market. At launch in first generation form back in 1996, the SLK did just that, complete with an innovation of its own, a Vario electric metal folding top, which was quickly copied across the industry. Classed as a sports car, it didn't drive like one. Instead, people bought it because they liked the badge and the clever roof. Which was fine until other premium brands got around to offering much the same thing with a more engaging road-going experience. Forced to up its game, the second generation SLK of 2004 was a big dynamic step forward, a trend the German brand claims has continued with this third generation version launched in mid-2011. This car has quite a job on its hands, charged with changing a whole buying demographic. SLKs, you see, have traditionally been bought by undemanding, style-conscious older female buyers who wanted and could afford something a bit nicer than a folding metal roof cabriolet version of a family hatchback like a Peugeot 308 or a Renault Megane. Keeping these customers while simultaneously appealing to the mostly male market that would usually opt for a sharper handling rival like BMW Z4, Audi's TT Roadster or Porsche's Boxster was never going to be easy. But Mercedes is never a brand to shirk a challenge. With this car, they aim to keep the fashionistas loyal with an opulent, more spacious cabin and a neat Magic Sky Control roof, which at the press of a button, drivers can change from light to dark as they cruise along the King's Road. Enthusiasts, meanwhile, get styling borrowed from the iconic 190 SL of the 50s, powerful engines and a clever optional dynamic handling package so that they can get the best from them. Something for everyone then? Let's see. A BMW Z4 or a Porsche Boxster is a direct, engaging driver's car, whether you want it to be or not. Now, given its wider customer base, this SLK must be a little different. And given Mercedes' need to meet the needs of that wider palette of interests, I think they've done rather well with the car we've got here. An interior speckled with styling cues from the SLS AMG supercar gets you in the right mood from the off, and the engines on offer seem to have enough about them to promise reasonably brisk progress. Now, the whole SLK concept of less being more was clearly demonstrated in the previous generation version of this car. This was a model you could bond with most closely, not in rip-snorting AMG flagship form, but in simple entry-level four-cylinder guise matched with a manual gearbox. So that's what I've gone for here. Well, not the manual gearbox. Mercedes says that hardly any UK buyers ever want it, so there didn't seem much point, which is a little curious, given that we are talking about a sports roadster here. Still, the 7G-tronic Plus 7-speed transmission does undoubtedly suit this car very well, with its silky smooth ratio changes and steering wheel mounted paddles. Just as well, really, because unless you go for this entry-level SLK 200, it's the only option. This particular version has one of the two 1.8 litre four-cylinder direct injection turbocharged petrol engines that are available in the range, units we're well familiar with from the C-Class saloon, that here develop 184 brake horsepower in the case of this SLK 200, with a marginal increase to 204 brake horsepower if you go for the SLK 250. Now, both offer fairly similar levels of performance, with rest to 60 taking about 7 seconds, give or take a few tenths either way, on the way to a top speed of around about 150 miles an hour. Though to be fair, the difference on the road between these two variants is greater than it appears on paper, thanks to the SLK 250 model's greater low-down pulling power and rortier engine note. You'll have to sacrifice a little on the engine note front if you want to go for the other 4-cylinder SLK derivative, the 2.15 litre SLK 250 CDI diesel. But that compensates with impressive frugality and performance levels that are pretty similar to the 1.8 litre 4-cylinder petrol models. And if you're buying this car as a style-conscious statement, then that's about all you'll need to know when it comes to driving experience. But for the more enthusiast-orientated audience that Mercedes hopes to attract with this third-generation version, it'll be just the start. These people will glance at the stiffer suspension option on their way to potentially ticking the box for something much better, the dynamic handling package. Now, this gives you continuously variable damping, able to adjust the suspension constantly to suit the road that you're on and the mood that you're in. Better still, the same package also includes a direct steer steering system, a much sharper setup to replace the slight vagueness of the standard system. And you get torque vectoring brakes, able to apply minute braking forces to the inside rear wheels during sharp cornering, so that you get a much sharper cornering turn-in. Now, the result of all this cleverness isn't quite enough to turn this car into a Porsche Boxster, but it's enough to get it surprisingly close, especially if you opt for arguably my favourite model in the third generation lineup, the SLK 350, with its 3.5 litre petrol V6. Now, this unit develops 306 brake horsepower, enough to hurl this particular version from rest to 60 in just 5.6 seconds, on the way to a top speed that has to be artificially restrained at 155 miles an hour. And that makes it just a second slower to 60 than the flagship SLK 55 AMG, a version that's far thirstier, but compensates with a glorious barrage of oral entertainment from its 422 brake horsepower 5.5 litre V8. And in summary, well, you still wouldn't buy an SLK for track day heroics, and you probably wouldn't buy one if all you wanted was a spot of weekend backroad fun. But as an everyday usable roadster, it's a very complete package indeed, leading its class in terms of ride quality, refinement and comfort. Now, on paper, those don't sound like attributes that should be sports car priorities, but in practice, they matter very much. Roof down on a typical cold British day, cruising fluidly along the bumpiest back road, I love the way the cabin cossets you from buffeting with its clever pivoting air guide draft stop that attaches to the rear roll bars, and the way that it warms you with its powerful heater and its air scarf neck vents. Other roadster rivals might be sharper, but they don't encourage you to go fast and al fresco quite as often, which for me is this SLK's real charm. Different, but still the same, is the aesthetic story with this third generation SLK. Designer Michael Plessing rather candidly admits that the previous version wasn't really a classic Mercedes. Personally, I thought it rather neat, which, if true, is just as well, for this Mark III model retains the same long bonnet, short boot roadster proportions, despite the fact that it's over 30 millimeters longer and wider, as well as being slightly taller. From the side, where chrome finned ventilation grills in the front wings are reminiscent of classic Mercedes-Benz roadsters of the 1950s, you might think this car to be little more than a facelift of its predecessor. But from the front, the differences are obvious. Clearly defined headlamps and an upright front grille, chiming with the car that most Merc enthusiasts see as being the original SLK, the classic 190 SL of 1955. Styling preferences must always be slightly compromised in folding metal roof convertibles by the need to have somewhere to store all those weighty metal panels. But the SLK has less of an issue here than is the case with some of its contemporaries. Not that there are so many of them these days. Collapsible tin tops have fallen from fashion in recent years, but not for one moment with this car did Mercedes ever consider reverting to the kind of fabric roof favoured by rivals like Porsche's Boxster or Audi's TT Roadster. Instead, they sought to make the folding metal roof trendy again by taking the metal part out of the equation, and instead giving customers the option to order their cars with a smoked, dark tinted panoramic glass roof panel, and even by specifying that panel with, wait for it, magic sky control. Ridiculous name, brilliant concept. Here the glass roof panel pulses with electrochromatic technology borrowed from the Maybach luxury limousine, which at the press of a button can change its molecular alignment to make the cabin as light as it is now or as dark as you want it to be. If I was being cynical, I might suggest that you could achieve much the same effect by installing a simple roller blind shutter, but then that wouldn't be as much fun, would it? And after all, a car like this is all about how it makes you feel, which is what I like most about this SLK. Yes, I'm irritated by the fact that you can't operate the electric Vario roof at speeds of over 2 miles an hour, but in every other respect, this is a brilliantly executed cabrio. The roof electrically opens or closes in around 20 seconds and can even work from the key fob if you're sat over the road from your Mercedes and sipping a cappuccino and the heavens open. You won't need to disturb yourself. More importantly for me, it has something that few other convertibles at any price can offer: decent roof down cabin heating. Not only through these SLS style jet turbine look air vents, but also through the air scarf neck level heating system, which sees warm air channeled up through these headrest vents and distributed liberally around your ears for feel-good freezing motoring. Behind the flat-bottomed multifunction steering wheel, it feels a suitably premium place to be. Everything around you feeling as if it's been built to last, and the centre console and other trim parts gleaming with brushed aluminium. More traditional optional touches include this analogue clock and the alternative of wood trim. If you're coming to this SLK from a previous generation version, you'll immediately notice the extra shoulder room, which makes the cabin feel significantly more spacious. There are no rear seats, of course, but a reasonable amount of boot space as long as the roof is up. It's a bit awkwardly shaped, but there is 335 litres in total, and these useful straps to keep smaller items from rolling about in hard cornering. It's a different story with the roof down, of course, but even then the 225 litres that you get is significantly better than what's on offer in a comparable folding metal roofed BMW Z4. Now, assuming that you're looking at mainstream SLK models, then you're looking at pricing which starts at around £30,000 for the entry-level SLK 200 petrol model that I've been driving here, and goes up to around £45,000 for the 6-cylinder petrol SLK 350. I'd have to question, if I was looking at the bottom end of the range, whether I'd really want to pay another £6,000 over the cost of this SLK 200 to get just 20 brake horsepower more in the petrol SLK 250. And in the same way, much as I like the 6-cylinder SLK 350 petrol, I'd have to wonder whether it's worth nearly £5,000 more than its most direct metal folding top roadster rival, the BMW Z4 S-Drive 35i. Now, when it comes to potential purchase of this Mercedes, for me it all comes down to this entry-level SLK 200, the variant that will account for an overwhelming proportion of UK sales, and you can see why. It effectively costs no more than its most direct folding metal top roadster rival, the BMW Z4 S-Drive 20i, and offers a more complete day-to-day package. Whichever SLK model you choose, the 1.8 litre petrol engine that I've got here, which comes with the SLK 200 or the SLK 250, the 3.5 litre V6 petrol, which comes with the SLK 350, the V8, a 5.5 litre engine that comes with the SLK 55 AMG, or even, if you're feeling especially sensible, the 2.15 litre diesel that you get in an SLK 250 CDI. Whichever of those you choose, you should find your car to be decently equipped, because all variants now come with alloy wheels, climate control, Bluetooth compatibility for your mobile phone, the DAB digital radio and cruise control. Unfortunately, the two items that contribute most to this car's top-down functionality, the air scarf neck level ventilation and the air guide pivoting rear wind deflector, well, they're extra. And you also have to allow a bit more if you want to consider the panoramic glass dark tinted roof panel instead of the normal metal one. And that panoramic glass roof panel can be ordered with or without the magic sky control, which changes the molecules in that glass from light to dark at the push of a button. Press-on people will want to consider AMG Sports Trim, which gives you sharper looks, lowered suspension and grippy supportive sports seats. I'd argue though that greater priority should be given to the acquisition of the dynamic handling package. Now this includes continuously variable damping, you also get more responsive direct steer steering, and you get torque vectoring brakes for sharper corner turning. And it's a package that really changes the character of this car, and one that you should try before finalising your chosen spec. Other nice to have optional items that I've got here include an 11 speaker surround sound stereo, a Becker Map Pilot navigation system and an intelligent lighting system with 5 different lighting modes to suit ambient conditions and the road that you're on. Safety wise, this car is a class leader. As well as the usual 6 airbags, then the normal electronic assistance for traction, stability and braking. You get a whole host of other clever standard safety touches. Let me give you one example. Attention assist. It monitors your driving for drowsiness and if necessary warns you to stop for a restorative coffee. Then there's the anticipatory occupant protection system, pre-safe, which is able to sense when a crash is inevitable and prime the brakes, the seatbelts and the airbags to meet it. And if, perish the thought, that crash should include a pedestrian, then a pop-up bonnet will lessen their injuries. There are also optional safety items. One example is a pre-safe brake, which is able to sense an impending rear-end collision and automatically apply the brakes to lessen the effects of it. Then there's a speed limit assist system, which is able to read speed limit signs as you pass them on the road and display them on the dash. Now, if you're one of those driving enthusiasts resigned to thinking that all future sports cars will be deathly dull hybrid or electrically powered things, then a glance at the running cost statistics of this SLK gives cause for optimism. After all, if Mercedes can make the 3.5 litre V6 petrol SLK 350 version of this car, that's a model, remember, that gets from rest to 60 in just 5.5 seconds. If they can make that variant deliver 39.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out just 167 grams per kilometre of CO2, then surely there's hope for the green pump yet. These kinds of returns are enough to make those of the rival BMW Z4 S-Drive 35i model look frankly rather embarrassing for all the Munich makers' trumpeted efficient dynamics technology. An extensive program of weight saving is one explanation for this car's parsimony at the pumps, aluminium having been used in the bonnet and in the wings, while the roof also blends this with high-tech magnesium. Also helping in this regard is brake energy regeneration, a disengaging alternator and the standard fitment of a start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic queues or waiting at the lights. As a result, running costs are down by up to 25% across the SLK range, so that all models deservedly wear blue efficiency badges, including of course the entry-level SLK 200 that I'm driving here. Now, in manual form, this car returns 41.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out 158 grams per kilometre of CO2. But with the 7 G-tronic plus 7-speed automatic transmission that I've got here, it does even better, managing 43.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and putting out 151 grams per kilometre of CO2. Best of the bunch, of course, when it comes to running costs is the diesel-powered SLK 250 CDI that manages 56.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out just 132 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else might you need to know? Well, residual values continue to be class leading, compensating to some extent for the plump upfront asking prices. And servicing costs can be kept in check if you keep an eye on the Assist Plus servicing monitor on the dash. That'll help you not to stop for a servicing visit unless it's absolutely necessary. Back in 1996, the Mercedes SLK reinvented the coupe cabriolet concept for the modern age. In many ways, it still does. According to SLK wisdom, a roadster needn't be uncomfortable to drive around town or on longer trips. It need cost no more to run than a family hatchback. It can make you feel at one with the elements even when the roof is up. And when you can go al fresco, the coldest day can feel as warm as it would be were the top to be closed. These are all attributes that rivals struggle to match, even if some of them might be cheaper or sharper to drive. Here then is a car from a brand that perfectly understands its target audience. A car that's become more carefully attuned to its market than ever before. A car with a level of engine efficiency and technology that makes many of its rivals seem from a prior generation. If you believed that the two-seat roadster was becoming a selfish and irresponsible indulgence, Mercedes clearly believes they can persuade you otherwise.